Welcome to the 40th episode of Swords Against Madness. In this episode, I will be summarizing the events of episodes 31 through 39. I find it's important to take a pause every 10 episodes and do a recap of what has happened thus far, both to help existing listeners keep track of the plot and help new listeners get up to speed with the story quickly. There will be no new plot developments in this episode, so let that wizard van idle. Take a moment to tune up the three-bladed sword. And maybe while you're at it, oil your chainmail bikini or your studded leather kirtle. And we'll take a beat to look back at the weird. In episode 31, where time and space don't really matter, Miria, Edric, Kale, and the Squid journey across the astral plane, an eternal shifting night sky of clouds made of pure thought, where every star is a gateway to another place in the multiverse. And they discover that it is far from empty. Early in their voyage, they encounter a pod of else whales, carrying sorcerers from place to place in their mouths. They hear distant chanting in a floating monastery, and fly past the debris field of a colossal god that had since turned to stone and crumbled, complete with signs that someone had burrowed into one of the ears and founded themselves a hermitage. Their destination is the floating head of an ancient goddess of law, whose third eye chakra opens into a doorway to the plane of Amber. Episode 32 flashes back to Miria's time as a free trader, shortly after she left her home planet. On the space station of Tarak Nor, she's doing business trying to pick up cargo, when she notices an assassin following her. She engages in a desperate chase and an even more desperate battle to save her life. When she bests her would-be assassin, she discovers a holoprojector in his pocket with a message intended for her. The message is a cruel threat from her nephew, the new ruler of her home planet. He demands that he turn herself in, prostrate herself before him, undergo a ritual of public humiliation, and then marry to carry on the family line. It's in considering these memories that convinces Miria that they are best to avoid the castles and the people of the Plane of Amber, the realm of perfect law that shapes the reality around us. At the end of that episode, the party is trying to relax by the side of one of Amber's roads when they are attacked by a terrible weasel-like creature called an Aurum Vorax. In episode 33, Abzu, the party flees the Aurum Vorax using magic that allows the van to fly. The escape was narrow and the creature was easily strong enough to have ripped the wizard van to shreds. After their narrow miss with the Aurum Vorax, the party decides to stay airborne rather than follow the roads, which means they quickly reach the portal to their next destination, the Plane of Abzu. Abzu turned out to be a land of dismal, shallow seas and perpetual rain and wind. And it is coiled many times over by the undead coils of the first primordial dragon, Tiamat, whose flesh is dead but cannot decay. The only sign of civilization near the portal that they could see was a lonely shack near one of the coils. Inside, the walls were covered with the scratched-in rantings and ramblings of a mad hermit, the only evidence of the man who had built the shelter. The party resolved to camp in the high grasses of the dunes well back from the beach. During her late-night watch, Miria was disturbed by a sense of motion on the water. Turning on the headlights, she could see the shining eyes of reptiles watching her from the water. She attempted to scare them off with the headlights and the horn, and did the opposite, antagonizing one of the creatures from the water, which charged up the beach, impossibly large and angry. In episode 34, Crocodile, we learn exactly what is watching the party, as a massive saltwater crocodile charges up the beach and attacks the van. During the battle, the crocodile managed to rock and shake the van enough for Edric to fall out and become exposed. Desperate to save him, Miria managed to burn out the battery on her electro-laser pistol. No matter how many crossbow bolts Kale could put into the creature, no matter how many clever ways she tried to use the Arakeen bottle to drive it off, there was no saving Edric. He was seized by the crocodile and dragged into the waters. The shock of losing another friend weighed heavily on Miria. She didn't fall into the same despair as she had when Rhea died, and perhaps that was even more worrying to her. She was starting to get used to the idea that she was responsible for the deaths of a number of her companions, that she might be leading people to their dooms. But as the squid reached out to her, he gave her hope. For the childlike and simple creature let slip that it understood the nature of souls and where they went after they died. In episode 35, A Gateway to the Stars, we turned our focus back to Nar, where Yongu used an escape pod to crash down on the planet. The ogre Magus came with blood on the mind, intending to enslave the village of Nar, steal back the dropship Miria had claimed, and recruit a slave crew to help him run the Zur. But while he is vicious and brutal, Yongu's no fool. He realizes that whoever wields the Gorum has some understanding of his technology and poses the greatest threat. And so, using his portable computer, he figures out which of his many caches on the island was the last one tampered with. In the same facility where Dr. Hadron had been made into the Master, Yongu falls into a trap. A handful of Gorum, now under the Master's control, pummel him and shove him into a surgical pod which nearly cuts him to ribbons. Yongu is forced to use his most powerful magics to slay the Gorum, leaving him vulnerable for when the Master finally shows himself, along with a handful of his genetically altered concubines. Yongu realizes he has no chance of defeating the Master, and is forced to bend the knee and accept a parasite descended from the Master's genetically engineered minion Frix into his stomach. The Master reveals that he sees Yongu as his means of getting off the world, to pursue more of the Carver's lost secrets, to rebuild his empire, and then to challenge the very gods themselves. In episode 36, Detour, Miria grapples with her grief at losing Edric. And in the process, she forms a plan. She connects with the All-Knowing and asks what he knows of the afterlife, what they might face if they were to go to the underworld to try and rescue her lost companions. Then, hearing the risks, she asks the grand question. Will the All-Knowing grant her leave to take a detour from her journey to return him home, in order to rescue her friends from the very clutches of death? To bring back Rhea, Olan, Nala, Raxon, Burl, perhaps even Garland, so that she would have the numbers she needed to face the perils of the plains. The All-Knowing gives his assent, and all that's left is for her to convince Kale to go along with her plan. A request carried out more with flirtation than conventional persuasion, and in the end they turn about and head back through the portal to Amber, en route to the astral plane and other worlds beyond. In episode 37, Warships, Miria and Kale witness the movement of an armada across the astral plane. Vessels on their way to a confrontation in the eternal war between law and chaos, Amber and the courts. When they spot a scout ship attempting to intercept them, they flee, and eventually lose their pursuer in the debris field made of an ancient petrified and crumbled god. From the astral plane they take a detour at the Squid's instruction, and pass through a portal that opens into Jotunheim, a vast frozen expanse ruled over by ancient and powerful giants, magical creatures, and terrible elemental beings. The eternal blizzards that rack that plane force them to move at a crawl as they fight to stay warm. They are dangerously close to hypothermia when they find an ancient column shaped like the head of the howling first giant Ymir, whose screaming mouth serves as the portal to the next plane. Realizing that they might not make it through the next plane alive, they elect to camp. They use their decanter of endless water to carve a groove into a snowbank at the back of the great idol, and allow the snow to bury them to provide insulation. Hidden from view, and buried under snow, Miria and Kale become romantically entangled, both to beat back the cold and the sorrow they both feel at having lost so many friends. That night they hear the sounds of giants moving around the pillar, but are not discovered. The next morning, Miria cuts them free with the decanter of endless water, and then makes an offering of a solid gold feather of a Kuji bird to Ymir to open up the doorway they need. In return, the howling face of the idol becomes a vortex of fire that they bravely dive into. This takes them to the fiery plain of Muspelheim, an eternally burning world of ash, soot, and smoke, ruled over by even stranger beings. In episode 38, elemental. Miria and Kale continue their journey across the blazing skies of Muspelheim. They use the decanter of endless water to keep themselves and the van from overheating, in the process making them painfully obvious as they leave a contrail of vapor behind them as they travel. The trail eventually draws the attention of a powerful fire elemental, one that decides to try to consume the van for pleasure. Between Kale's fancy flying and Miria's use of the decanter of endless water to repel the creature, they're able to escape, but not before the van suffers severe damage. So much so that any more abuse to the van and it may lose its ability to fly. Exhausted and overheated, they finally find the portal they're looking for, a tunnel to the plane of Stygia, the underworld that claims the dead of Orbis, so that they may await their final judgment. And while doing their best to heed the dire warnings of the All-Knowing, they hide the van in a copse of pale subterranean trees to rest. Episode 39, California, takes us nearly 3,000 years back in time, to Earth in the 20th century, where three mostly unremarkable teenage stoners hang out in the back of the van in San Benito County, California. The owner of the van, 19-year-old Tom Foreman, is there to do some stargazing with a set of instruments he has invented himself. Devices that he hopes, if he can prove the concept, will get him admission into Stanford. His two friends, Tina and Silas, are more interested in getting stoned, listening to metal, and making out in the back of his van. But he definitely welcomes the company. Tom's experimental gravity telescope proves to be perfectly effective. As it turns out, he was able to predict a meteor shower that many of the local observatories had missed. When one of those strange meteors strikes in a field not too far away, they take their van out to examine it for themselves. As they examine the mysterious glowing green sphere, they accidentally expose it to UV light, which triggers a strange reaction in time-space, dragging them forward through time and across hundreds of light years. As a result, they found themselves dropped on Orbis, a planet whose gravitational field it had passed through during its bizarre journey backwards through space and time, leaving them stranded in the jungles of Nar, 60 years before Miria's crash. Tom, at least we know, would eventually become the wizard known as Foreman, revered by the Narites for his incredible exploits and his mysterious magical conveyance, which now serves as Miria and Kale's transport across the plains. This solo game of mine continues to be a trip, and I'm loving every moment of it. I hope you're enjoying it too. I'm looking forward to picking it up again soon with Miria and Kale's adventures in the underworld, to figure out if we can bring the dead back to life, or at least find some other way to make sure we can safely cross the plains in order to return the All-Knowing to his home. The opening theme to Swords Against Madness is King Edward by Mr. Smith, a Creative Commons by Attribution song distributed through the Free Music Archive. The episode also contains the songs Crossroads and Scorched Fields by Alexander Nakarada, Dark Suspense Trailer by Nassel Baum, The Enchantress by Obliques, and Nepal by Abydos Music. Until next time, as always, play hard, roll high, and think weird. Thank you for listening.